Hi, this is Tim Yoder with Fit Small Business. Today I'm going to be evaluating Sage Business Cloud Accounting for Chapter 2 of the Fit Small Business case study, which deals with primarily accounts payable. Our first task is to record a utility bill to New York City Electric Company. Okay, so from our summary screen here, let's go ahead and go to expenses. Just click on the menu item expenses, and that should bring us to what I would call our expenses center. So we're going to need to create a vendor. We'll see if we can create the vendor, what I call on the fly here. So let's just click new bill. And can we just enter a vendor here? So let's just call it New York City Electric Company. Click add new vendor. Okay, so obviously in real life we'd want to fill out as much of this as we can, but we're just going to put the name there. I think that's all we need. Okay, so we could put a vendor reference number, purchase order number. Okay, we don't have a product or service set up for this yet. We'll do that after a bit here, but right now let's just call it a utility bill. A ledger account, let's say utilities expense, that's pretty handy. Okay, and we're just going to keep the quantity 1, and the bill is for $150. Okay, good. So this we've entered a new bill received from the vendor. We're not paying it yet. Good. Okay, so can we attach a copy of the receipt? Looks like right here. We click that. We can upload files. Yes, we can attach a copy of the receipt. Very good. Okay, I'm going to just click save. Okay, there we go. So this is the bill that we have now. Okay, we want to record the purchase of a miter saw from Lowe's by uploading this receipt. Okay, so let's see if this will work. I don't believe that it's going to create the bill for us. I think it's just basically attaches a PDF copy. So let's go ahead and get this receipt ready here. Okay. Okay, so let's create a new bill. One way I think we can do that, actually right here we can add another bill, or we can come over here, and you can do this from anywhere within the program. Let's click on this and vendor bill. Oh, sorry, vendor bill. Okay, and this vendor. Now instead of filling out all this by hand, let's see what happens. Oh, we need to put in the vendor first. Okay, so let's just say Lowe's, add a vendor, save. Okay, now let's attach a receipt. See if we can click and drag it. We did. Okay, good. So it attached the receipt, but it didn't use any sort of character recognition to complete the transaction for you. Now that is available with a plugin for Sage, but it's not part of the, I think it's called Auto Entry is the name of the plugin, but it's not part of the base program. It's something you have to pay additional for. So we're not going to evaluate that as part of this case study. So we were able to attach a receipt, but it doesn't recognize the receipt and create an expense out of the receipt. So we'll have to do that by hand. And this is something we paid for with our credit card. Okay. Sorry, let me look at a copy of the receipt here. I think it was $284 after tax, $301.09. So we bought it from Lowe's. This was just, we'll call it small tools. Sort of like a tools expense, or maybe supplies. We're just going to call it office supplies. Okay, now we're not paying it, this is just the bill. So let's save the bill. And now let's pay it on our credit card. So here we can click record payment. Amount paid through 109, paid from our credit card payable. Wow, that's really easy. That was really nice. I love it. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and fill out our scorecard. So creating a vendor is very simple. We can record an expense without paying it. We can record the due date on that expense. We can attach a copy of the receipt. I'll look to see if we can send a receipt from the app later. Is the receipt just is it just attached, or does it create a transaction? It's just attached, so I'll give it a 0 there. Okay. And one other thing we need to look at is, as we create another one, we'll see if we can tell it which class to assign the expense to. Okay, so let's see what's next here. Record a monthly recurring expense of $150 for telephone service. The expense is automatically paid from the checking on the 5th of each month. So we want a recurring expense. So let's go to expenses. Okay, so can we record a direct expense without, so that it's paid immediately, is the first thing we need to look at. And I'm not seeing any way to do that. It looks like it's always paid as a bill, and then you pay the bill. What about up here? Yeah, okay, so let's create a new bill. Okay, vendor. We're going to create a new vendor. This is the telephone bill, so I'm just going to just call it New York City Telephone Company. Add it. Okay, here's the date of the bill. Here's the due date. We can change that if we want. Just describe it as telephone. See if we have a telephone expense account. We do, and that's $150. Okay, now, can we assign this to the administrative class? That's the question. I certainly don't see a way to do that here. Are these additional options? There we go. Classes location. Very cool. So let's assign this to administrative, and we'll assign it to New York. Very awesome. Love it. Okay, let's hit save. Now we want to make this a recurring bill, but I'm not seeing that here. So let's hit save. Okay. So from here, to make it a recurring bill, let's hit copy. Okay, so that's letting us enter a bill again. So it's nice in that it, copies it and starts it for us, but we're still having to enter it. So that's not going to work. Okay, and the other issue here is we weren't able to issue the expense without having to do 2 steps. First, we have to enter the expense, the bill. Now we're going to have to go in and pay the bill. It doesn't appear that you can enter a payment directly. So let's go into this bill. And let's record a payment of the bill. Paid from our checking account. So easy enough. Oh, and then do you want to print a check? Okay, so because I chose check as the payment method, it'll allow me to write out a check manually and enter a check number, or I can print the check right now, or I can print the check later. So let's do this. Let's say we want to print the check right now. Confirm. Okay, and here it gives me a opportunity to print this check. So I'm going to select the check. Okay, and then I'm going to print the check. Okay, when you've successfully printed, enter the pre-printed check number below. Okay, so we can hit print check, and there we go. So you just want to make sure you have the right check stock, that all of this will work with your printer. Okay, it's very cool. So that's how we print a check. Very handy. Okay, very good. So where were we here? We're skipping around a little bit. So the primary problem we've come up with, right, is that we cannot pay a bill directly without first entering a bill and then paying the bill. So things like automatic expenses that come out of your checking account, you're not going to be able to enter those in one step. The other issue is we can't do a recurring expense, right? We can copy the prior month's expense and that'll give us the starting point, but it's not going to automatically generate an expense without us clicking a button every month. So let's back up a little bit. I've done a little bit of research. There might be another way to do this. So we're trying to, this New York City telephone company, it's supposed to be kind of like an automatic electronic withdrawal taken out of our checking account every month. So instead of using the expenses tab, I think we're supposed to use the banking tab. So in the banking tab, let's go into our checking account. Okay, and then let's make a new entry, an expense payment. So it looks like if we're paying it immediately, rather than go through the expenses tab, we go directly to the bank account. Okay, so here, let's put New York City Electric. No, New York. This was telephone. That doesn't really matter too much. Yeah, this was telephone. Okay, for $150. Now let's move this from check to electronic. And that was $150. Okay. And then let's hit save. Okay, you have not allocated the full amount of the receipt payment. Do you want to save the unallocated amount as a payment on account? No. Okay, so it's asking us, basically it's wanting us to apply this to a bill. Well, we don't have a bill from them. We're trying to do this without having to set up a bill. Yeah, see here it's wanting us to allocate it to bills, but we don't have any outstanding bills. Okay, well let's set this up as an other payment rather than a vendor payment. Here we go. Now, setting it up as an other payment, we're going to be able to put it directly to a ledger account rather than to a bill. This is going to work. So New York City Telephone Company, from checking, electronic, 150. Okay, and book it to telephone expense, administrative, New York City. Excellent. Okay, now let's click save. Okay, so there we're able to create an expense without having to create a bill first. So you go into your bank accounts and then you got to go into the other payments, not the vendor payment. This vendor payment here was the way we had tried it the first time, right? We set up a bill, then we went and we paid the bill. So that's why it's in here twice. Okay, now let's see if we can make it a recurring entry. I think we still might be able to do that. So let's see here. We've got this recurrence. How do we get in there and make it a recurring bill? So let's go into the other payment. Make recurring right here. Okay, recurs every 1 month until, it looks like that's required. So let's make it for a year. Okay, now there we go, it's updating. Okay, here we go. Now we can see that this is a recurring payment. Very good. Okay, so gave up a little too easy the first time, but yeah, so that's not under expenses, it's directly in the bank account. Can you create a recurring expense? Yes, we can. Okay, now let's get a little bit into inventory. So we're going to buy and sell plumbing widgets. So we want to set up an inventory item for plumbing widgets. And so that's probably going to be under our products and services. Okay, so let's set up a new item. Let's see what are our other choices. Okay, just a new item. This is going to be a stock item, meaning this is basically what they call inventory. So this is going to be an item we keep in inventory. I'm going to call them PW for plumbing widgets. Okay, and we're not using categories for our inventory, but that's an option. Okay, our selling price for this item, for these plumbing widgets, is going to be $25 a piece. That does not include tax. The sale account will go to the sales of materials, and that's fine. We'll keep it sales of materials. The tax rate, we haven't dealt with tax rates yet, but we will later, so we can do that later. So I buy this item from, looks like we can set up a default vendor, we don't have to. So our expense description for purchase forms will also be plumbing widgets. Our cost is going to be $10 per unit, so we're buying them for 10, selling them for 25. And we're going to record that. This calls it an expense account, but this inventory is actually an asset account, which is what I would want it to do. Yeah, let's leave it right there. Inventory. We can set a reorder level and a reorder quantity. I wonder what the difference is. I don't know. Might have to play with that and see. Opening balance. If we have some on hand at the beginning of using this program, we could click here, but we do not. Additional information. Oh wow, we can put a barcode, weight, all sorts of stuff. Okay, very good. So that is our inventory item for plumbing widgets. Let's save it. Okay, and so we have plumbing widgets, cost of 10, selling price 25, quantity in stock, none. Okay, very nice. Now let's record a purchase of 150 plumbing widgets from the widgets guy. Okay, so let's go to expenses. Let's create a new bill. Actually, no, I think we want to do a purchase order, don't we? Yeah, a purchase order. So can we do purchase orders? Well, before I say no, because I'm not seeing it here, let me do a little bit of research. Okay, done a little research and confirmed that you cannot do purchase orders in the Sage Business Cloud accounting. so we will not be able to do that. So let's go ahead and so we're just going to have to skip that. I don't want to actually do the purchase for the full amount because that's not the way the case study is set up. So we can't do a purchase order, so there's no transaction to record at this point. Okay, so now a little later down the road, we receive 100 of the widgets that we ordered for $10 per widget. So now we can record that because now we owe them. So this is an actual bill. So let's record a new bill to the widgets guy. Okay. Product or service will be plumbing widget, and that automatically puts in the description. The ledger account is inventory. Very good. We're recording it as inventory, and we purchased 100 of them. Okay, so we've actually received the 100. We're paying them $1,000 for it. Okay, very good. Let's just hit save here. Excellent. Okay. So now we want to view inventory units available and on purchase order. So we can't view anything on purchase order, obviously, because we don't have purchase orders. However, we should be able to view what's on hand. So let's go over here to products and services. And we show 100 units on hand. Very good. Okay. So a little further down the road, we're going to receive another 50 widgets, but this time we had to pay $11 per unit. Okay, so let's do vendor bills. A new bill to the widgets guy for plumbing widgets. This time we purchased 50 of them for $11. Okay, very good. So save. Okay. Excellent. So let's go back here now and see what it says under products and services. So we should show 150 units are in stock. Very good. Now, does it tell us the cost of these? This is important. Let's see if we can drill into this and get some more detail. We need to know how much we actually spent on these. Okay, so it is giving us an average cost per unit of $10.33. I suppose we could take that times the 150 in stock and get us our total cost. Okay. Okay. Sure. So I guess that's sufficient. We can, yeah, it gives us our average cost per unit, so we can easily calculate the total cost. Okay, let's go ahead and score our rubric here, see where we're at. So create an inventory item, yes. Record the purchase order. We weren't able to do that. Convert the purchase order to a bill when we received the inventory. Couldn't do that. Create a bill for the purchase of the inventory. We were able to do that. So view inventory available, yes. View inventory on purchase order, no. View total cost of inventory on hand. Since it gives us that average cost, I'm going to go ahead and give them credit for that. View total units of inventory on hand, yes. So I would call this so-so inventory accounting. The purchase orders, not having purchase orders is kind of a big deal if you do a lot of inventory. business, but it's still fairly good so far. We'll have to see how it calculates our cost of goods sold yet when we sell something. Okay, now let's get into our project counting a little bit. So we want to create a project for our customer family bowling, and we want to call that project bathroom renovation. So let's go ahead and create a contact first. So we're going to create a customer. A new customer called family bowling. Obviously, again, you could fill out all this information if you wanted. We don't need it for the case study. Okay, there's family bowling. Now we need to create a project called bathroom renovation. So again, let's see, where was it? I think it was in settings. And this is going to be our third kind of type of grouping. So we have like classes of products, we have locations, and now we can have projects. So those analysis types. Okay, so we have classes, location, and projects. So under projects, let's create some projects. We're going to call this our bathroom renovation. And we probably want to be actually a little more specific than that. Let's call this family bowling bathroom renovation. So we'll use that as our code. Now we can put out a longer name for it. Yeah, I've never quite seen projects handled like this, so we'll see how this works. Usually when you create a project, you assign it to a customer, but here we're not really doing that, and this should be a B, not a P. Okay. Active areas for this analysis, so we're going to have sales and we're going to have expenses. And click Save. Okay. Good. So we created our project. Now, let's see. We pay Hank Independent for contract work. Pay Hank $30 per hour for 40 hours. Okay. But we're eventually going to bill $80 an hour. So let's set up a service item for Hank's contract labor. So we're going to go to Products and Services. Let's set up another service. Set up another item, I should say. This time it's going to be a service item. And I'm just going to call it CL for contract labor. Okay. I sell this item for $80 an hour, not including tax. The sales account, we'll go ahead and leave it professional fees. Probably should be something different than that, like contract labor. We buy this item, and on expense forms, I want to call it contract labor as well, but we could have a different name for it on expense forms than invoice forms if we want, than sales forms. And our price is $30 an hour. And we'll put that in our cost of sales. Sure. Okay, very good. Hit save. And that gives us our service item for contract labor. Okay, now we want to pay Hank Independent for 40 hours of work on our bathroom renovation. So we know when we're making direct payments that are not going through bills, we want to do that in our banking tab. Okay, so we want to create a payment. Okay, Let's see. What if we make it an other payment? See, if we make it an other payment, we're not going to be able to use our service item, and I don't like that. So we're going to make it, let's enter it as a bill first and then as a payment. So let's go back to our expenses tab. And this time we'll do the payment a little bit different so you can kind of see how it works. So let's record a new bill from Hank Independent. Okay. And we're paying Hank Independent for contract labor. Very good. Automatically coming up at $30 per hour. We're going to pay him for 40 hours. That's $1,200. Now, we want to assign it to a project. Very good. So let's put it to a plumbing New York City, and now our project is going to be this family bowling bathroom renovation. Make sure that saved it. Yep. Okay. And then we can hit save. Now, the one thing I can see it's going to happen, so this program is going to track our revenue and expenses by project, but it's not going to allow me to take that expense we just recorded as part of the project and automatically assign it to the customer's invoice, because it's not creating a connection between our project and the customer. So other programs, QuickBooks Online does it, Zoho Books does it. It connects your project to your customer. So as you incur expenses on a project, they'll automatically flow over and you can add them to an invoice to that customer. That's not going to happen with this software. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's pay this bill from Hank Independent, but instead of paying it here, let's just pay it a different way. I think there's probably many ways to do the same thing in this program, just like most programs. So let's pay this outstanding bill by going to banking. So we go to checking. Okay, we want to make a new payment. We want to make it to Hank Independent from our checking account. Let's say we're going to write him a check, but this time let's say we're going to handwrite it. That'll happen here in a second. So we're going to make our amount paid is going to be $1,200, and we need to allocate it to this outstanding bill. Apply it, and there we go. So this is our outstanding bill. Now in real life, you're going to want to make sure you're entering bill numbers, reference numbers and stuff when you enter a bill so that you can keep them straight as you're paying them. Didn't do that for this case study. Okay, so good. We have 0 left to allocate. We've allocated our payment to all our bills. Now, one nice thing about this is if you have a whole bunch of bills from one vendor, you're going to be able to go in here and pay them all with one check. Okay, so let's hit save. Yes, now it's asking us about how do we want to print this check, because we've told it it's going to be a check. So let's just say we're going to write the check manually, and then if we had a check number from our manual checkbook, we can enter it here and then hit confirm. So if you don't want to print the check, you can write the check by hand. Okay, so looks like that worked okay. Now we want to do one other expense item related to this project, and that's a permit fee to New York City. Okay, so I'll tell you what, we're going to skip that because what it's testing is whether we can add that expense to the customer's invoice, and I can see now that we can't, so there's no point in doing that. So we're not going to record that permit fee. Okay, now it asks us, view the expenses incurred but not yet invoiced for the family bowling restroom renovation. And this is what I'm talking about. We can't do this. There's no way, the program is not keeping track of project expenses and whether or not they're then passed through to the customer. So other programs, when you record an expense, you're allowed to check a box a lot of times that says bill this to customer. There's no box to check for that in this program. So we can't automatically pass through expenses to customers and keep track of that. So we're not going to be able to do that. Okay, so let's go into our scorecard here. creating a project was easy. Oh, so let's see. So Hank Independent, we would like to track payments made to him because we're going to need to report them to him on Form 1099. So let's see if we can do that. So we would probably do that on his vendor information page. So click into Hank Independent. And this may not have the feature because this is not necessarily especially my trial here, I don't think is necessarily the US program. Options maybe. Oh, right here. Very nice. So let's edit that. 1099 vendor, then we put his social security number, hit save. Okay, there we go. It'll track payments made to the vendor so that we can prepare our 1099s. Create a service item. We did that for contract labor. Put a default cost in there, put a default sales price, pay the independent contractor. Here's where we're getting into trouble now. So designate the payment as billable to a customer. We're not able to do that. Designate the payment as billable to a project. So I'm going to say yes. So we assigned it to the project. View expenses incurred but not yet billed. Okay, so back to our case study. The next thing it wants us to do is view the unpaid bills. So let's kind of look and see what this looks like. So if we go to our expenses, so it looks like we have unpaid and paid. Can we filter? Yeah, here we can filter outstanding. Maybe unpaid. Do I have to click search maybe? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there's our unpaid bills. Simple enough. View a list of vendors. That should be under contacts. There's our vendors. Very good. List of transactions by vendor. So if I click into, say, Lowe's, does it give me a list of their transactions? Yes, down here are the transactions. Very good. View unpaid bills by vendor. Let's see. So who are our unpaid bills to? Let's go back to expenses. So we have some unpaid bills to the widgets guy. Can we view that? Yeah, here we go. We've got vendor bill, and how much of it is outstanding. So I would call that vendors, open and paid bills by vendor. Okay, excellent. View expenses incurred but not yet billed. Yes. Unpaid bills. Yes. List of vendors. Yes. Unpaid bills by vendor. Transactions by vendor. Very good. Can we record an e-payment of a bill? Yes. So we've already done that. We did that with the telephone bill. The key is, remember, instead of check, you want to select something like electronic. So let's just real quick go through how we did that again, make sure I'm thinking right. Okay, actually let's go to expenses. Let's pay one of our outstanding bills. So the electric company, let's pay the electric company by electronic transfer. Okay, record payment, amount paid, paid from, checking, method, electronic. And that's the key. If you put check, it's going to ask you, do you want to print the check? It's going to ask you for a check number, all of that. Here we're doing it as an electronic transfer. Okay, very simple. Can we print a check from the program? Yes, we already did that. We can record the check number in the register. Even if you hand write the check, it gives you the option to record that check number. Okay, now let's look at credits from vendors. I do think we're going to have the ability to do this. Let's walk through it here. Okay, so it wants us to pay the widgets guy. Maybe we already, no, we haven't paid the widgets guy yet, have we? Okay, so first off, it wants us to pay the $1,000 we owe the widgets guy. So let's do this through our bank account. Actually, no. Let's do it through the expenses, since we're dealing with bills that have already been entered. Okay, so right here is the $1,000. We want to pay that. Should be simple enough. Record a payment, $1,000 from our checking account by check. Record. I'm going to go ahead and just say we're doing it manually. Obviously, if you wanted to print the check, very easy to do. Okay, very good. Back to our expenses. Now we want to pay $400 of the $550 we owe on the other bill. So we don't want to pay the whole thing. We want to, for whatever reason, we want to short pay it. We call it when we don't pay the full amount. So I've clicked on the bill. Let's record a payment. But instead of 550, we're only going to pay 400 of it. Okay, paid from checking with a check. Record. We're going to write the check manually. Okay, good. And it shows that we still owe them $150. Very simple. Okay. Now, we want to return one plumbing widget to the widgets guy for a refund of $11. He's going to issue a credit that can be applied towards future purchases. Okay, so we're returning something to the widgets guy. So this would be a vendor credit note. Okay, let's create a new credit note. Let's see, a new credit note from the plumbing widgets guy. Okay, so let's make sure we note that it's for plumbing widgets. It's for one plumbing widget, and it's for a refund of $11 because this is one of them that we had paid $11 for. Okay, and hit save. Okay, and so we have the $11 outstanding. Okay, very good. On 2/15, purchase 10 plumbing widgets for $11 each, and then we want to pay that bill, but after applying this $11 credit. Okay, so let's go to expenses. Okay, new bill. To a new bill from the widgets guy. Okay, and we're going to purchase plumbing widgets. We're purchasing 10 of them for $11 each. Okay, save. Now, here's the tricky part. We want to pay that bill, but we want to apply the credit first. So let's see if we can do that. So let's go record payment. There's nowhere here to apply the credit. Now what about add credit note? Well, this, okay, so it's making us, we can't enter the credit note as soon as we get it. We have to wait and enter the credit note as we, looks like we have to enter the credit note as we receive it. I mean, as we're applying it towards a vendor. So most programs you can enter a credit note as soon as you receive it. Then when you go to pay a bill, something pops up on the screen, asks you, do you want to apply this unused credit? And you say yes. Here, you want to wait until you actually are paying a bill, it looks like, and then apply the credit. But let's not quite give up yet. So let's cancel this. We don't want to have to re-enter the credit because we already got the credit entered. Oh, I know why things aren't showing up here. So, okay. Yeah. So what if we click both of these? Actually, I think maybe the way to do it is going to be to go into the banking tab. Yeah, let's try this. Let's go into the banking tab and pay him. I think this will work. Okay. So we want to write a new expense here. The vendor will be Hank Independent. And the amount paid, I'm going to have to do a little math in our head here. 110 minus 11 is $99, I think. Oh, it's not Hank Independent. That's the problem. It's the widgets guy. Here we go. Okay, so we're paying him $99. So we want to apply $110 of that to that bill, and we want to apply negative $11 to the credit, meaning we're using the credit. There we go. Okay, that's how that's so not super straightforward there. But that's the only way you're going to be able to apply a credit that you've entered prior to making the payment to the bill. Okay, so save it, pay by check, sure, we'll tell them we'll do it manually. Okay, and there we go. So fill out the rest of our scorecard. Record a credit from the vendor, yes. Decrease the inventory. Oh, let's look at that. So when we recorded our return of a product, it should have taken that out of inventory. Let's make sure that it did. Plumbing widgets. Good. We have 159, average cost of 1037. Okay, very good. Now the other thing I want to see is let's look in our report. Let's make sure it's recording these this inventory. Let's make sure we're recording it on the balance sheet, not like automatically in cost of goods sold. Inventory of 1649. Very good. Okay, back to our scorecard. Decrease inventory, yes. Apply the vendor credit to a new invoice, yes. Can we short pay an invoice? Yep. So ease of use. Not the easiest I've used, especially applying that credit was strange. If you want to make direct payments without entering a bill, you can't do it through the vendor payments. You have to do it through a different type of payment. Not horrible at all. I'm going to give it a 0.7 out of 1, so 7 out of 10 for ease of use. It's set up pretty decent, but it's a little bit surprising how a few of the things work. So, great. Well, that was Chapter 2 which deals with our accounts payable, a little bit of project accounting, a little bit of inventory accounting for the Fit Small Business case study for the Sage Business Cloud Accounting.